Hello, everyone. In session 3, we explored startups that leverage university research results. I believe that many of the startups you plan to launch fall into this category. Mr. Jacks, an alumnus of the National University of Singapore, successfully utilized the university's startup ecosystem and resources to launch a material startup. I hope that his presentation has provided you with actionable insights and valuable suggestions. As we move to the final session of the advanced segment, I will provide insights into deep tech startups from an investor's perspective. A deep tech startup is a company that possesses advanced technological capabilities to the level of having intellectual property. What makes these startups appealing from an investor's perspective? Is it their ability to address critical global challenges and have a transformative impact? Or perhaps it's their potential to scale in a manner that's unmatched in the typical startup landscape? Indeed, both of these make very attractive features. However, as discussed in session 2, deep tech startups face unique challenges, which will influence investment decisions. To provide us with greater insight, let us now hear from investors. First, we have Ms. Shao-Ning, an angel investor who joined us in the basic segment. Given that she is an angel investor, she provides perspective from the initial investment rounds. What do you think about deep tech, which is unlikely to produce immediate results?
So, as I shared just now, I work a lot with deep tech founders. I would say, from investment point of view, deep tech. If you are doing deep tech and you want to find angel investors, you have to find angel investors who are really believing in long-term returns, not just financially, but philosophically.
I see.
So, within our membership, actually, we have some more senior members who actually feel that it's my job to make sure the world goes on after I'm gone.
I see.
Because of that, they very generously support climate tech related startup. They go for alternative food sources. They support, but so it's that group, that kind of mindset you need to go for. You really need to do your reverse due diligence to know what kind of ideas you're working with, what kind of philosophies you're working with on the other end. Because like for me, I've done a few deep techs, I've done a few hardware, biotech, not biotech, medical tech. I realized as an angel, I'm not good here because I can help with the founder's mindset, but I don't know a lot about this space.
I see.
So when I don't know a lot about these spaces, I'm not helpful. Yeah.
So domain expertise is
Domain
important?
expertise plus the intention behind.
I
Yeah.
see.
But angels, on the flip end, I would actually advise angels to be very clear about this, because understanding deep tech is one thing. Understanding how much resources that they need in the long term is another thing. Because like what I found out, med tech in the first 3-4 years, you need $3 to $5 million. As angels, it's really very difficult to support that kind of capital requirement.
Correct.
So let's say the startup by the third year, they are not able to get to the kind of traction to attract the institution money. Then what happened?
I see.
So your money will be down with very little returns. So I know that you really believe in this cause. So you have to go in with a very clear idea that they may not be second episode.
Ms. Shao-Ning has candidly shared her opinion as an angel investor. The investment landscape in the US tends to be somewhat different, with generally larger investments in startups compared to other markets. Nevertheless, I believe her viewpoint aligns with the majority of angel investors. Investing in deep tech is typically challenging for angel investors because it usually demands a substantial initial investment and often takes a long time to achieve an exit. Furthermore, evaluating the investment potential is not easy without specialized knowledge in the technology and industry, which is another reason why many general angel investors tend to avoid it. Next, we have Mr. Steven from Vertex Ventures, who also joined us in the basic segment. Vertex Venture mainly targets Series A rounds and above, so he may have a different perspective from angels. Let us hear what he has to say. Vertex investment focus doesn't seem to include deep tech. Do you invest in deep tech startups, particularly when the investment risk is very high?
Short answer is yes, we do. And in fact, we do look at deep tech, right? We think deep tech technology is maybe like one of our core mandate or strategy for the investments. But maybe to elaborate on the longer answer, so my role is more towards from Japan to Southeast Asia or India, right? And we also have a Southeast Asia team, right? So for Southeast Asia team, they sometimes look at the earlier stage as well, right? Even if there is no traction, right? And where the risk is still very high. So we do look at that as well, of course, right? So in Japan, we have slightly different strategy, right? We don't typically invest too early, right? We want to make sure that at least they have a PMF in Japan, right? Product market fit in Japan. In Japan first, before we kind of consider, okay, maybe we can kind of like help them scale this technology to like other countries, right? So in Japan, maybe we don't look at earlier one. We maybe look at after Series A, right? But we do, even if the risk is high, we still kind of consider as well for that investment, especially deep tech. Yeah, we also look at that.
So deep tech. Okay. So what kind of deep tech? Any like a pharmaceutical or robotics, and then actually Japan is very well known for the technologically advanced country, right? So any particular domain?
So for now, we are trying to be as flexible as possible. The reason is because rather than certain industries, we want to make sure that the business model makes sense in overseas as well, right? So I think more towards the industry, we look at whether that business models sometimes is very successful in Japan, but the business model is very unique in Japan domestically, right?
Although Vertex Ventures does not specialize in deep tech, he said that it can be a potential investment target. However, as they usually invest after Series A, there are conditions. The startup must have at least achieved product market fit, and the company needs to have a business model that can scale globally. This means that they usually do not provide any financial support to deep tech startups at the very early stages. Unlike software-based startups, deep tech startups require large amounts of money in the early days. This is because R&D and prototype development require a certain level of capital. If it is difficult to get support from general angels and VCs, who will provide financial support to early-stage deep tech startups? To find out, we spoke to an investor who specializes in investing in deep tech startups. Mr. Xian Hui is an executive director of a Singapore government-affiliated VC, SG Innovate. SG Innovate is a government-owned innovation platform in Singapore that focuses on the development of deep technology. It was established in 2016 to consolidate innovation activities in Singapore and advance deep tech products from the region. SG Innovates invests in startups specializing in research-driven technology and works with universities, polytechnics, and ecosystem companies to foster innovation. What motivates the government to support deep tech startups in Singapore?
So I think the whole evolution of the startup ecosystem in Singapore was very much in alignment with what was happening globally. At the very start, we were coming out of the dot-com era and all that. A lot of digital solutions, big multinationals were being formed like Google, Facebook, now called Meta. So the Singapore government at that point in time wanted to create a more vibrant startup ecosystem, and we started with the ecosystem that was already growing globally, and that's the reason why actually we started earlier than 2014. Actually, already all the way back between 2004, we were already looking at trying to build a startup ecosystem. Then along the way, as the startup ecosystem became more developed and became more sophisticated, we realized that there were other areas that the government needed to focus on, and we could then translate the application of emerging technologies into these particular sectors. So that's the reason why after a few years, and it sort of trends with how SG Innovate itself evolved. We started off as an organization or a venture capital firm called Infocom Investments, under the Infocom Development Authority. And then when we were tasked to look into other sectors, other verticals of technology, SG Innovate was created under the aegis of the Ministry of Finance. So our purpose really is to look into what we call emerging technologies that have the potential to impact the economy of Singapore. And obviously digital remains a big part of it, with generative AI and how it's going to help the economy. But we are a small country, so we have got to focus on the threats and weaknesses of a small country. So things like, for instance, energy independence is something that we look at very carefully. Food security is another area that we focus on. We look at the potential threats from a cybersecurity angle. So there are many different areas that Singapore looks at and establishes what the kind of threats are, and these solutions are not necessarily solved using digital technology. So therefore, the government at that time said, let's look at the hard technologies, because that was what was most likely to be able to help solve these problems. For example, if Singapore wants to be energy independent, we can't look at just solutions in hydrogen or in renewables and fossil fuels. We are going to look at things like perhaps unpopular things like nuclear energy, fusion technology, and we are spending a bit of time on that. So that's one part of the equation. The second is that the government has also been spending a lot of money on research at the university level. I think about $2 billion annually is spent on research at all the institutes of higher learning. And they also wanted to see if there was an opportunity to monetize the output from a commercial basis. Otherwise, research is just a bottomless pit. You put money in and then nothing comes out other than papers. So they would look, and there are two ways to commercialize it. One, of course, is licensing. You can license the IP, but then you don't truly get the value of the research that has been put into the particular topic. Or the alternative is to commercialize it in the form of startups. And obviously, that has to be an avenue and an angle that we had to consider. So SG Innovate, in a way, was set up, created because there is this need to translate intellectual property from what's being developed at the universities into commercializable assets that are startups.
Could you tell us more about SG Innovate's investment rounds and their areas of focus?
So SG Innovate plays in every stage of a startup's development, from the creation of the IP all the way to Series B. And of course, Series A, Series B does not make much sense. Just talking about it, because different industries, Series B, Series C means different things. A Series B digital platform is one that already has got thousands of customers, maybe doing 10-20 million revenue. A Series B biotech startup may not even be commercially viable yet. So we had to look at all the different industries. We had to map out the startup life cycle for each of them, and then we had to look at what was needed at each stage. So we do everything from co-investment together with grants with the Singapore government, and that's the very earliest stage, to investing, to lead investing at the seed stage, and then to follow on investments. In other words, we let someone else lead, a bigger fund lead, maybe at a Series A, Series B. So at every stage we play a role, but not necessarily the same role at each stage. Yes, so when it comes to deep tech, angel investors are also wary. So there is, the government has, the challenge for government is always at what stage do you stop funding and let the private sector take care of it. For us, so at the very earliest stage, they have got grants. It's called Central Gap in Singapore. There's a grant of a couple of $1 million. It's non-dilutive and is meant to take a particular project from a project where there is viable intellectual property to a prototype. So basically TRL 3 to 5, TRL 3 to 4. And the model is that, the approval for this grant is accelerated if the company that is going to be formed is able to raise funds. So we actually are one of the institutes or one of the venture capital firms that have been authorized to invest. And if our investment goes in, then the grant will be given. So therefore the company benefits from investment as well as a grant which is not diluted.
Come together.
It comes together.
I see.
Yes, and it takes the company up to a prototype stage, which means roughly at the pre-seed or seed stage. From there, there are just starting to be some investors looking at it. So once you get to that stage, then SG Innovate can again invest now as a lead investor in a round of funding and try to bring some of these smaller investors or some of these overseas investors that don't want to lead a round of funding into that round. So that would be at a pre-seed to seed. And then by the time we get to Series A, the company has developed from a prototype all the way up to a minimum viable product, the first customer. Then we try not to lead. We can still lead the round, but we try not to lead the round of funding because by then the company should have other private investors that want to lead. So at every stage we are doing something different for the company.
What are the characteristics of deep tech startups originating from Singapore?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the examples you have given are relevant, but they're also conceptualized in the context of a country which is fairly big. And it's just like Japan. Japan is a big country and with many different areas where you can specialize. Osaka maybe more in biotech, Tokyo maybe more in the hard sciences. So each one has their own area of specialization. Singapore is a single country, so we have got to try to do a little bit of everything that is important to us. So we are able, we have, of course, being a small country, digital is important. So I think generative AI, blockchain, cybersecurity are areas of focus for us. Definitely our biotech and medtech ecosystems are very well developed and the processes are quite well funded. We are developing we used to have a very strong focus on semiconductors. We stopped after a few years, because obviously we couldn't compete with the likes of TSMC, would do things more cheaply. And unfortunately, we let go of a lot of the knowledge that we had, including the talent. But we are starting to look at it again, especially in areas like the 3-5 materials, photonics, so on and so forth. So a lot of different areas are starting to crop up again, that are important to us. Food, agri-tech is becoming more important. We definitely are looking at energy, and of course the whole issue of sustainability, energy distribution, so on and so forth.
Are there any particular challenges that deep tech startups in Singapore face?
Oh wow, there are just so many of them. I'm not sure where to start. So again, it is a case of, so let's break it down. I think from a development perspective, IP generally solves one particular part of the problem. But for a product to actually be commercially viable, you need a lot more than that. It needs to the point where the technology or the uniqueness is only 10% of the actual product itself. So I think having a strong supply chain and ecosystem anchored in Singapore is a challenge for a deep tech startup, because we are not like the US market or the Chinese market that, or even the Japanese market that has strong supply chains that can help to build, can wrap a more sophisticated product around
Productize?
Productization. We also do not have so many domestic customers. Yeah, so we have got to, the day that the startup is founded here, it's got to start looking outside of Singapore. We may not have the capabilities once the product is successful to manufacture at scale here as well. Because a lot of these require very sophisticated manufacturing equipment, capabilities, talent, again, distribution, so on and so forth. So many challenges for a startup in Singapore in the deep tech space, but yet there are also strengths. And our strength is, of course, the research is pretty strong, recognized at the global level. So a lot of the ideas are actually pretty good. It's just that there's a lot of the ideas bleed out into the rest of the world because they're either licensed by some of the bigger companies or they are or startups that are founded in Singapore end up becoming overseas startups. So these are one of the challenges. I think you can look at it as we're a launch pad. We would like to be a little bit more than a launch pad. We'd like to try to retain some capabilities domestically. But a lot of companies, and it's also a function of our foreign talent policy. We welcome capable and talented foreigners to come to Singapore, learn, study at our universities, come up with their own IP and then start companies. So we don't stop them from doing that. And in fact, I don't think any government investment, not grants, any government investment restricts the number of foreigners as founders in a company. So I think we are open to it, but again, it also means that we have got a lot of founders who start in Singapore and then they go overseas because that's their home country.
What are the deep tech founders from Singapore like?
Yeah, so the thing with deep tech is that a lot of the IP is anchored in the universities, and each university has its own technology transfer office. In other words, even though this professor might be extremely brilliant, whatever he develops still belongs to the university. Yeah. So I think a lot of professors are not keen to join startups or to resign to start a startup. There are some examples, and I'll share one example later. So what we usually do is to get someone in their lab, one of their postgraduate students, to take the lead from a technology perspective. And whenever we invest, we are always very careful. We always tell the person there that you can be the CEO of the startup maybe up to Series A. After Series A, when the company is going commercialization, we are going to find someone else from outside to lead it, who understands the market better.
More professional CEO.
A professional CEO.
Commercial.
Yeah, with commercial contacts and ability to apply the right business model. But usually at the seed series, seed and even up to maybe Series A, you're still developing the product. So you still need people who understand it. So we are also careful of what is needed at the companies at each stage of funding. I was going to share the example of, so we did have one company in the quantum technology space. The professor was tenured at the SUTD, one of Singapore's universities. He had developed this idea for, he said, there are too many quantum machines in the market. All of them use a different protocol. He's going to develop a specialist compiler that will allow people to write one program and be able to work with and to optimize it for each machine. So we liked the idea. This was about 5 years ago, I think. We liked the idea. We talked to him a bit. We tried to convince him that the problem is that this is not, when it comes to software, it is not a case of the professor wants to stay in the university and he can just find a postgraduate to do it. When it comes to software, especially something that is conceptual, and he was the world expert in this, we actually have got to come out. So after we had to commit to him that we would fund the company, and if there was no investor, we would fund it all the way up to Series A, or to a stage at which the product can be starting to sell. So he accepted it. He resigned his tenure, which is very rare for a professor. And he started the company. The company's called Horizon Quantum. And we went in at a very low valuation. I think the valuation was $3 million. We put in $500,000. The company today is worth about $125 million.
Wow.
Yeah, so it has grown significantly. And even though I told him that we are going to he's got to hand over at Series A. He hasn't raised his Series A yet, so he's raised a lot of money from Sequoia,
Yes.
Pick 15, as well as Tencent, because everyone was, now everyone's looking to see how to. No one wants to write programs for Rigetti and IBM and all that. Everyone wants to write one program and use for all. So this is a company that is growing very aggressively and has done very well because the professor had the right mindset. So I think that was, it's not smooth sailing. It's not like, he and I always agree on everything. I remain on the board, but it is one which I think there was enough give and take for them to grow in an impressive way. Yes, if you do the original research, especially in software, it's extremely difficult because it's just his concept, and he didn't really have any. There was no. In fact, in this instance, there was no IP to transfer out. It was all in his head. So. So the day he left, he didn't have to sign anything with the university. So, so the value was in him. Of course, in this instance, then we have what they call key man risk. In other words, if he decides, if something happens to him one day, then he will be paid.
So who will also join this startup? So this professor, and then he cannot do everything, right?
Yes.
So
we will give him an idea as to how to structure it.
The organization.
Usually he knows how to develop the product, and he knows who to hire, and because in this instance the quantum community is very small. But then he doesn't know how to hire an office manager, human resource, finance. So these are things we'll help them with.
How does SG Innovate work with research institutions and universities?
Oh yes, very much so. I think I know we have co-invested with UTech in
Tokyo University.
Tokyo University.
Already.
We have gone to Tokyo University to visit, because you've got UTech and you've got Tokyo University Fund as well. Tokyo University Ventures.
Many.
So we have met with them. We are always looking for new investments. So because we are global investors, not just Singapore. And in the areas that we're looking at, nuclear fusion and all that, Singapore doesn't have any startups. So we have to look at countries like Germany, the United States. In fact, most of our success stories, the companies that are propping up the value of our fund are mainly from the US and Europe.
I see.
Yes, they've got more to all. I won't say that, every country, as you said, has got certain unique proposition. We also can't cover everything in those countries, so we try to collaborate. So we are open to collaborating with any university, tech transfer office, government, of course, because we are government, and then we try to rely on that, as well as other investors domestically.
How does SG Innovate work with big corporations?
Yes, so I have a team within investments that just looks at corporate engagement. And it's not because the corporates will acquire our startups.
I see.
There are two reasons. Obviously, if they want to acquire it, we definitely want that to happen. But for all the companies that we invest in deep tech startups, most of them are B2B. So we need to understand what direction the corporates themselves are taking. You can't just say that this deep tech solution is going to work for the industry. You've got to talk to the industry. You've got to know the companies in the industry. They have got to tell you that this particular solution has got value, or they will tell you that there's no value because of this and this reason. So without corporate engagement, our investments will also end up becoming a bit random. We will be sitting in the office here and trying to conceptualize needs of the market in the United States, in China, in other parts of the world where we may not fully understand it. Whereas if I were to, I'll give you an example. We have a maritime solution in Singapore, which is a very good one. They are able to take waste exhaust from the vessels, the seagoing vessels, clean it up, and then after that create methanol from the exhaust, which means that it's cyclical in nature. So it's something which is, we can't just sit here and say, wow, it sounds like a great idea, we are going to put money in. So because we have a network of corporates that we work with, we will consult them. Mitsui, Maersk, engine manufacturers like Wärtsilä, Hyundai, MAN, companies like that will then be able to tell us, good idea, but it needs a lot more than this before it is viable. And then it's helpful because then we know they like the idea, but they need more. So if we can give them that more, then they are likely to take that on board. So it's helpful for us when we invest that we know where the company needs to go, or whether the company is even useful. We are always looking for design partners, but not all corporates are willing to work with a startup to build the product out. A lot of them just want to see the final product. However, there are some corporates, especially those that are not the top company in their sector.
I see.
Yeah, because the top company in their industry tends to be, we know all the answers to the problems.
I see.
Whereas the number two that's trying to become number one is more willing to take a risk. And those are the ones that we tend to work with. So we are now very practical as to how we operate. We don't want to waste the startup's time.
I see.
A lot of these corporates sometimes they're like, we are very interested, but then they waste the startup's time. So after a while we stop engaging with
I
them.
saw so many such cases.
Yeah. And of course the startup gets excited when they have a chance to work with a corporate. But we also tell them that at the end of the day, it's a relationship that's two-way. So if the other side is not willing to commit, then it's best you walk away and do other things because it's a waste of time. Yeah. So I think the community. So the way we look at it is, for instance, we have a focus on nuclear fusion, for instance. It has to be narrow enough. It can't be too broad. So the community team at SG Innovate will try to build what they call a community of practice in Singapore first. Because we need to understand who are the key people in Singapore that are interested in this area, who are the key stakeholders, who are the researchers, who are the investors, and also who are the regulators. So that's something that a lot of deep tech investors forget. The regulator can kill your company because they don't understand the technology. So they can literally say, I don't understand it, therefore I'm not going to change my rules, and because I don't change my rules, you're never going to be able to sell it. So this is very common. And an example of how Singapore works with this is, let's say Singapore Food Agency. Singapore was the first country in the world to accept cultured protein, protein grown in a lab. And the reason is because SFA had been working with the community for long enough to understand that whatever was grown in the lab under certain circumstances was safe enough for people to eat. In fact, it is safe enough for you to eat if it's grown within a media which is used to grow vaccines. So can you imagine if you're going to grow a vaccine inside the media, it's definitely safe enough for you to eat because it's going to be injected into you directly, you see. So all these things come about only if you educate everyone at the same time. So whenever we have community development for communities of practice, we try to educate everyone, connect everyone so that we solve the problems before they crop up.
What are your thoughts on deep tech startups in Japan?
I've seen quite a number of startups in Japan. I always am impressed with the technology in Japan. The tech is very good. You've got a lot of big corporates and all that. But my feedback is that the startups in Japan tend to be very focused on the domestic market.
Correct, yes.
And it's no harm in that because it is a big domestic market. You've got 100 million people, you've got big companies there. No harm in that. But if you want the companies to become global names, like what Toyota and all that have become, then there needs to be a slightly more international application of what they have. To be able to, I suppose the first thing is language. Something which is easy for all of us to understand. I've gone for competitions in Japan where I was invited as a judge, and the presentation is in Japanese and the slides are in Japanese, and I'm struggling to understand what it is to the point where I just go online while they're talking. I'll just go online and check what the translation on the website, and I can understand the challenges for that. But it will be opening up a much bigger market if the companies were more international. So language is just one thing. I think the language is one big hurdle. Obviously, there's a slightly different culture in different parts of the world, and you've got to look for corporate partners outside of Japan.
Yes.
And I think obviously you've got very big companies, Mitsubishi, Mitsui, and all that. But you also need to work with overseas conglomerates for you to be able to become a truly global organization. So I think I've seen lots of very good technology from Japan, but it's always been difficult because the language is a barrier, and also sometimes it's the lack of willingness to have a foreign investor in the company. Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that because I have a portfolio company called Sinolis, and the founders are Japanese.
Oh, really?
The two researchers are Japanese. They can't really speak a lot of English. They are Japanese.
A very strong technology. Right?
Oh, the technology is very strong. They are in the aptamer space, it's in the biotech space. It's actually very interesting what they're doing. The person who is the CEO studied in Japan, did a PhD in Japan, so obviously speaks very good Japanese, but he speaks English, very good English because he's from Singapore. So he's the CEO and one of the key investors in the company. And that company actually has relocated to Singapore, and so we are trying to see what we can do to help them because the technology is good. The CEO knows how, because the CEO actually has sold his own company before.
I see.
Yeah, so he and the wife sold Veredas, one of the
kind of serial entrepreneur.
Is a serial entrepreneur, but he speaks good Japanese, so he knows where to look for.
A very rare talent.
Yeah. So we invested in that company, and then we are hoping to see the thing grow. But that's a good example of how, I mean, the founders are Japanese, but they are also open to going outside of Japan.
I see.
What is your investment criteria?
I mean, candidly, it's no different from other investors. We look for what is the market opportunity. So when we look at a solution to the market, the first thing we do is to check with our corporate partners on, is this really a problem you guys are solving?
I see.
Then, okay, it's a problem you want to solve, then the question is how much are you willing to pay for it?
Correct.
Yeah. And then after you know how much you're willing to pay for it, then roughly how big is this?
Correct.
Yeah. So sometimes the corporate will say, yeah, this is a big problem for us. Yeah, but it's a big problem for only one department, and they may pay for it like once every 5 years. So
Correct.
I mean, that's not a market for us. Yeah. So I mean, we have seen some medical devices where the big hospitals will say, oh, we really want this, we'll definitely buy this. Then the question is, how many will you buy?
Correct.
Oh, my whole hospital, I only need one. I said, you've got 5 hospitals, so I got a market size of 5 in the whole places. So it's not a market. So I wouldn't be doing anything with that company.
I see. And also the founder, right?
Yes. Oh, of course, the founding team is important. So we assess all these things, and then the founding team is, hopefully if all the things check out, then we look at the founding team to see if they are easy to work with, or they need to have integrity more than anything else. And they need to, even the people, even if it's not the original researcher who is there, he needs to find, we need to know who else is going to be there. So in the field of quantum nuclear fusion, there is none, So that's where it's challenging.
What do you think? Well, I think there's a lot to learn. As a government-affiliated VC, they provide necessary support at each stage, from pre-seed to Series B, where companies expand significantly. Interestingly, they combine grants and investments, as they are a government-affiliated VC. This is a good model for supporting the journey of a deep tech startup. In addition to the unique approaches used by Singapore, what he shared was packed with very useful suggestions, including a universal approach to deep tech investments. I shall now summarize the key points. First of all, Singapore positions deep tech startups as an important means to solve problems at the national level. This applies to many other countries. Next, instead of being just an investor, they support deep tech startups as a startup builder. To identify technologies for the creation of ventures, they work closely with research institutes and universities. They also provide the necessary talent to form a team. Deep tech startups tend to attract attention for their cutting-edge technology, but what's most important is a CEO who can drive the business forward. Therefore, from their talent pool, SG Innovate can match business professionals with scientists to launch the company, or replace the CEO after Series A if what is required in the early stage is different from the later stages. They also bring together key stakeholders necessary for the growth of deep tech startups, such as large corporations and regulators, into a community. These stakeholders provide important infrastructure that deep tech startups need during their growth journey. Lastly, he touched upon deep tech startups in Japan. He emphasized that while Japanese deep tech has great potential, their potential is underutilized because many of them do not look outside of Japan and tend to stay in the domestic market. He highlighted the importance of looking overseas. SG Innovate maybe takes an approach unique to the city-state of Singapore, but the many important insights that he provided are relevant regardless of country. Addressing the challenges that Japanese deep tech startups face that Mr. Xianhui mentioned, AntroD, a Japanese VC that focuses on deep tech, is actively investing overseas. When we spoke to their APAC Executive Director, Mr. Kumamoto, about investing in emerging countries in Southeast Asia, he said that there are many social issues unique to emerging countries in the region. Trust in Japanese companies is very high, and thus, there are lots of opportunities for Japanese companies as they can leverage Japanese branding. This is a strong advantage. In the software industry, American companies such as Google and Amazon dominate. Meanwhile, in emerging Southeast Asian countries, manufacturing is big, and companies like Toyota and Honda are very well respected. That's it for Japanese deep tech startups looking to expand globally. This may be a better market for success compared to other regions. Deep tech startups have the potential to address pressing social issues through cutting-edge technology, making a profound long-term impact on the world. Securing the right investor, who provides not only funding but also access to the necessary infrastructure for launching and scaling, appears to be the key to success. I hope that your deep tech startup will thrive globally after watching this advanced segment, as well as the basic segment. Thank you very much for watching, and I wish you the very best.